So have a very nice day. So today we are going to talk about what is the rise of civilization. How did many civilizations come into exist from the Neolithic period? Neolithic period is actually the farming, nomadic people. They try to settle down in a particular place after discovering how to do the farming, how to come up with the food directly rather than going for hunting or searching for food. They are able to produce the food these days. So now they're trying to settle down in places where they have enough amount of water, where they have protection against the wild animals, and they also can be in groups. So now this civilization, when the term civilizations comes into existence, or when the term called regulations comes into play. Now, what kind of regulations? Like there is a structuring system that is actually being the guiding factor for these people. Now, like education comes into play, like language, they try to communicate with each other in terms of sounds, in terms of exchanging foods, and as a community, they're trying to grow up and all. Now, if you see, once the civilization starts, you can see that they have the same kind of culture, same kind of beliefs. They have a same kind of tradition that they follow. Right or wrong is something different, but they have something. They're doing it together, so they are coming up together to make a settlement here. So you can see that as time progresses, they also have advanced developments, advanced knowledge about how the earth works, how you can have multiple technologies into play and everything. Um, why, what are the conditions which actually led to the civilizations, if you see it? The first thing was that they need a place where they can settle down and do farming. They can produce their own food, they can cultivate, produce. So first one was the fertile soil. And so whether the soil alone was enough, no, it was not enough. That they need water, that you have to cultivate things, and you have to have a plenty of sunshine so that the nature does its magics, and the farming is also good. They also should be connected with people. They have to do trade so that whatever they produce, they can trade it to the other nearby city, and they can also get some other produce from the other cities as well. So we're not going into too much into what is culture and other things, but you all know what is a culture, that you have set of things that is followed by a set of people together. Like what kind of house they have, what kind of food they eat, what kind of clothing they have, or is there a separate language with them? So they do created a culture here. Now going into the in a world scenario, if you see it, you can see that the yellow regions were four big civilizations which actually came into existence during the time 3000 to 1500 BC. One was Egypt, the second one was Mesopotamia, the third one was Indus Valley Civilization, which is in India, of course, and you also have the civilization in China. If you see all these four civilizations, they had the main they were settled in the areas where you have water, the abundance of water, fertile land. If you see Egypt, it was Nile River. You see Mesopotamia, there were two rivers called as the Twin River, um, Euphrates and Tigris. And in Indus Valley Civilization, the river Indus played the major role. And in China, it was the Yellow River. So here, in all the four settlements, it was the river which actually played a major role in people settling in that particular location. So coming to the Egyptian civilization, today we're going to learn about the Egyptian civilization. So this just a map of Egypt, how it actually existed. So you can see that there is a river which is going in the center, that is the Nile River. On either side of the Nile River, you can see there is a green patch that is going on along the river on either sides, which basically indicates the fertile land around the river. And once this stretch of fertile land ends, you can see there are this yellowish sands, which are basically desert regions. So, since you had desert on both the sides, Egypt was well secured, but it was also linked to the other areas in terms of the water. Canals were built, the water were used for trading and fishing and other activities as well. Yeah. So you can see that Egypt was actually divided into two. One is the Upper Egypt, the other one is the Lower Egypt. But if you see the map, you may think this is the Upper Egypt, but actually it is the vice versa. The first top half is the Lower Egypt, and you can see the southern side to be the Upper Egypt, which basically why this naming is because from south to north, the flow of water of Nile River was. So the southern region, like where the start of the river is, it's called as the Upper Egypt, and as it goes towards the northern area, and it eventually settles down in the sea. So this particular part is called as the Lower Egypt. Specialized workers. Now earlier, the only main work was to gather food, hunt, gather food, protect yourself. These are the main functions of a human. They really don't have anything else to do. Or that was the main thing, and it was very tiring also. So they didn't actually think about it. Now that they have settled down in a particular place, now that the food is abundant in nature, now they are coming up with more kind of roles to be played inside the society. So you can see that one particular person named as Pharaoh becomes the ruler, and under him, there are officials in the second stage. There are priests and nobles were in the second stage. And you can see the third stage to be, traders, artisans, the one with some kind of, work to do. And the fourth layer, farmers were in the fourth layer. They were farming, they were producing food and all. And you can see the fifth layer to be the unskilled workers. They actually don't have any skill or any business to actually perform or something like that. So people who are into business, who are into shopkeepers and all, they they give them salary, they give them food, and get works out of it. So there were five social structures you can see like this. So topped by Pharaoh, and at the lower layer it was the unskilled workers. There were complex institutions in the sense there were a system or a government to be followed inside Egypt, and there were also a religion that was taken in full fledged. So, because of which you can see that there were construction of temples all around, and the head of the state was Pharaoh. He was named like he was kept as the representative of the god on earth. They also had taxing systems. They were organization of labors. They were able to do trade with the neighboring cities, and they also protect them using some defense techniques and all. They also have this way of telling that they have a system. You can see these pictures over here. These are paintings from the Egyptian area. You can see there are pharaohs and there are people who are tending to them, and you can see the outfits here of the pharaoh. It's different from the ordinary people. So there were this that how the social structure is being run can be seen here in the pictures. And you can also see that there were wars and defense mechanism that was also into play during the Egyptian civilization. So Egyptians were polytheistic. The term polytheistic means they had many gods. Okay, so it was not one god that they worship, but they had many gods. And you can see in the picture there are a few examples like Horus, Isis, Thoth, Osiris, and Amon-Ra. So each god has their own temple, and worshipping the god with the temple was also in practice with the Egyptians. And the fourth one we need to think is like they had a writing system. Actually, it was not like an alphabet that we are talking about. But here it is the symbols that made the alphabets. You can see that in this particular picture. So what is A, B, C, D, E, and how it was pronounced. So you can see that it is a symbol, it is a animal, or it is a kind of object that became the um, that became the language for the Egyptians. And this particular system of language is called as hieroglyphics. So it was pictograms and it had phonetic alphabet as well. And this particular slab, it's called as the Rosetta Stone. So this is actually used to translate what was written. So the hieroglyphs were translated using this Rosetta Stone. It was again, found in the Egyptian excavations. So they also had advanced technologies, like they had a 365-day calendar. They know the geometry very well, as you can see how the Egyptian pyramids are being constructed with proper pyramidical shape and a proper square base, although the structure is very massive in terms. They also had roles in astronomy and geometry, pyramids, all those things. So this is few pictures which shows how they were into the numbering systems and the astronomical systems. Daily life can be learned from these kind of pictures and drawings from the Egyptian area. So you can see that plowing, farming, having that they have domesticated the animals, and all those can be seen. And you can also see that their drawings are very two-dimensional in nature, but yet they were able to represent their daily life. So there's a few more pictures of it. You can see that they're getting the fruits from there. Few are taking the water, and you can see the difference between the socially upgraded one and the lower person or a farmer. They also did fishing here. You can see they had a boat or raft-like structure with which they were able to do the fishing from the Nile River. And you can see that the birds were also hunted and they were able to domesticate lions. So these are the daily life of Egyptian people. Geographically, if you see, the landscape itself, added a good defense to the Nile region. So they had this Nile in the center. They had the fertile land and surrounding which you have your mm, deserts as well. And on the northern part, it actually extends till the Mediterranean Sea, and on the eastern part, it extends up to the Red Sea. So the sea also provided them a good defense as a city. Mm. So geologically, since it is a delta area, you can get more amount of mud from it. So they were able to quarry the clay, make it into blocks, and use it as sun-dried bricks. So they also made use of the reeds, leaves from the area. And they also had limestone where they actually quarried it from the nearby hills. And they also had tura for the construction of pyramids. Tura is basically like a volcanic earth. And yeah, they know how to preserve their dead bodies as well using stone coffin and all. So stone were also the abundant one was actually the clay, and they made it as sun-dried bricks. They also added leaves, reeds to make it more, you know, to strengthen the clay like a tensile member. That was also used, and stones were actually taken from other areas like the nearby hills and all. So they also had red and gray granite from Aswan to make columns and architrave. As you can see, columns and architrave is basically the beam member. As it needs more strength or it support. These are the major supports, and you can see that they use granite for that. You can understand the knowledge that they have. And going to the climatic condition, they only have spring and summer. They don't know what is winter or how the snow works, how frost is. They are unknown to it. Since it is too much of sun in summer, they need to protect themselves from the excessive heat that they did, of course. Um, and since it is full of sun, they gave only few windows, so they limited the amount of windows. And also, since the windows were very low or very small, they used the walls for drawing, painting, and to write something, that is the hieroglyph. So that was also there. Since they do not have so much of storm or rain, the clay brick that they used was very useful. So religious connection, I think we already saw about it. Pharaoh was basically considered as the god's representative to um, you know to earth, and they also had multiple gods to worship. So for that, they constructed temples there with many courts and halls, and they also had like dark chambers and all those things. And they also worshipped heavenly bodies like sun, moon, stars, animals as like embodiment of the gods. Social condition, I think we already saw you had 5 stages of social conditions. So I'm not going into it again. Architectural characteristics features, if you see, because of the season, they were going on with massive walls. They were simple, but it was massive and it was very thick in nature. And they also had pylons on the top. So pylons actually made this the entrance for any temple. And you will see a open court next to it, surrounded by colonnades here. And then you see another hall called hypostyle hall. You can see the roof different, the height of the roof differences here. So with the difference, they were able to give clear story window in between. And they also have a dark chamber with light holes from the top. So you can see here, clear story window. So they use the height difference, like 1 and 2 height difference. The intermediate length, they added the windows, usually in the upper story. And so we'll see that with the pictures. You can see here that these are stone columns. The columns are very huge and thick. And it is said that if 16 children stood around the column, holding the hands together, they'll be only then they'll be able to hold one column. You can see here the human scale with respect to a column. So it is very huge and massive. So here's the like elements here. So this is the base, the small base, circular base can be found. And you have a shaft with a few inscriptions and drawings on it. You have a capital. On top of the capital, you also have an abacus topped by an architrave. In this picture, you can see you have rows of columns here, and this horizontal beam is what is your architrave. And top of that, you can also see the stone beams, which is crossed like crossed. If this is the architrave, they were kept like this in sequence. So that became the roof for the temples. Nature of the columns are also fluted in nature. Fluted in the sense you can see these lines, vertical lines over here. So you can see this fluted in nature, which actually resembles that when bundles of papyrus is basically like a grass type of grass. Yes, it's like a grass, but it's little big in size. So if a grasses are kept or bundled together, in our case, you can say straw bales are bundled together. So these fluted columns actually resemble that structure. And you can also see the clear story windows here. So here, okay. So if you see this section, you will be able to understand. So this is one structure, and this one room. So the height of the roofs, as you can see, it is varying. So they are making use of this intermediate length, the vertical panel, to be the windows. And this windows are called as clear story windows. Due to clear story windows, the light enters the area, one thing. The heat that is inside that also goes out of this area, that also. So it is basically has multiple role in terms of lighting, ventilation. And this is one of the columns capital you can see here. So it looks like as if there is a palm tree is being kept as the capital. As you can see, the inspirations for the architectural elements were taken from the naturally available materials of that area. And here you can see lotiform columns with lotus bud. And this is like the bud is little, opening up or something like that. Yeah, you can see the lilies and papyrus together. So this is just a depiction of how the papyrus grass could be. Yeah. You can see like papyrus and lotus are getting repeated everywhere. So this is just a comparison of this is a closed papyrus, and you have a clustered column, which means you have a papyrus bundle here, and again a top with a bundle of papyrus, and then you have open papyrus. This is again a closed papyrus. These are the type of columns which are available. And few other examples for open papyrus and closed papyrus. You can see that the leaves are getting seen here. Hathoric columns. Hathoric columns where basically like you have a human head here. You can see like female head is being kept as the capital of the column itself. So in that case, it is called as the Hathoric columns. And you also have composite columns, as the term composite says. It's a mixture of different capitals together. You can see this bundled reeds over here. You also have this open papyrus over here. So it's like a composite, a mixture of columns. Okay, we are going to see about the temple of Aman Karnak. So Aman Karnak is basically dedicated to the god named Aman Ray. So let's start with this. The structure of the Aman Karnak start with two obelisks here. I hope you're able to see here. And you have a central axis surrounded by rows of phoenixes. There's a central axis. It is surrounded by rows of phoenixes. Once I cross the row of phoenix, I can see a pylon. Pylon is a trapezoidal structure. It's a structure like very thick, very massive, and it becomes the entrance for the entire temple. And as I go inside this pylon, I can see an open court with columns on either sides. Okay. And again, I'll see another pylon. So pylon, second set of pylons now. The second set of pylons will lead me to another hall called the hypostyle hall. I'm going to go back to the plan now. Yep. So this is the first set of pylon. I enter inside. I have been lined with rows of columns on both sides with the open area. And as I cross the second set of pylons, I come into a space called hypostyle hall with multiple number of columns. I think it was 132 columns there. And then again, I cross over another set of pylon to come inside the main area or the main temple. Okay, I'll go to the 3D structure again. We'll go on again. So you have two obelisks followed by row of phoenixes on both sides. Phoenixes are basically a mythical creature, with a human head and a lion kind of shape for the body. Once I've crossed the phoenixes, I have two sets of pylons on both sides. That leads me to an open court. That leads me to another set of pylon, followed by an hypostyle hall, and then comes your temple. This particular structure is called as obelisk. That is also repeated here in front of the second set of pylons as well. So the main thing about this is the hypostyle hall. The main hypostyle hall actually has 134 sandstone columns. You can see the big columns that are there. In the previous style also, like in slides, I told you that there were 16 children who has to hold hands together to get the entire diameter. So that is this hypostyle hall, of course. This hypostyle hall is the one which has the clear story lighting. And thus with uh, this built during the Ramside period, and it was standing 69 feet tall, which basically means it is 7-story high. Yeah, it's another way to represent. You can see that this particular temple is aligned next to the river Nile itself. Okay, so the rituals can also be taken place in the river. So this is another temple actually, Temple of Luxor. So you'll just see the reconstruction images, how look at the details, how they're able to add the daily life, the hieroglyphs, and you can also see this massive structures in the front, which is not present now. So as you can see, these are the Hathoric columns. Moving on to the evolution of Egyptian pyramid construction. We all know the Egyptian pyramids were, world famous. Yes. So how did they actually come up with that particular shape and form? So we'll see the first stage was the mastaba. Even before that, people usually used to, take a pit, bury them, and just put mounds of sand on top of that. So this mounds of sand later part, since because of the air and other things, these mounds of sand are not actually, properly there. So they try to construct it with earthen block like this. Okay, these are trapezoidal structures with steeping walls outside. So these are called as the mastabas. So is a house of eternity. So they have to protect their mummy. Mummy is basically like, a preserved form of the bodies, human bodies. So they have to do this. Since mastabas are not that good as, early mastabas were good in terms of sand as it was, blown away and bodies were eaten by the bigger birds and all. Now that they have the mud bricks, they were able to have better protection for the mummies. So there's a cross-sectional view. You can see mummy was actually buried inside. So they have a big grave inside which they buried this. Sarcophagus is the term given to the coffin of that area. You can see from the area here is the entrance. Okay, they also have a false door over here in order to preserve the mummified body. And there's a small chapel for rituals to happen, and then you have a shaft that's called as the burial shaft, and they have the coffin to be kept underneath the underground portion. The second step. So the second one was actually the step pyramid. So this is the one in the picture is called as the Joseph step pyramid in Saqqara. So as you can see, there were tiers of mastabas together. In the earlier example, it was one mastaba. Now they're trying to stack up the mastabas on top of each other. So this was actually the architect was Imhotep, and it was the major stone building. So it's a limestone in nature. You can see that there are 6 layers. So which together it rises up to 60 meters, which basically means 20 floors. Cross section, as you can see. So it was happened in 2 phases. This is the first phase, and you can see the second phase over here. This first phase was very small, with only 4 layers, and then 2 more layers were also added. So now it is 6 stories in nature. Here you can see that you have the burial shaft, and the king's apartment is over here. You also have a granite burial vault in this area. This is the second access. So you have 2 access for this Joseph step pyramid. So they have complex system of planning. Even the burial shafts were very complex in nature, as you can see here in the picture. Without the stepped pyramid, look how it looks. Okay, they also have gallery area where their dearest things were kept as it may be useful for their afterlife. That was also there. And this is another example for stepped pyramid. Snufru stepped pyramid at Maidum. Maidum is a place. They actually started it like a true pyramid, but they didn't come and the stones started slipping outwards and they have to stop it and go up with another pyramid on top. That's why it's kept like this. So this was actually known for the first attempt for the true pyramidical shape. And they also innovated this carpel ceiling technique. Carpeling basically means, if one is over here, the another one basically extends like this. So that cobbling technique was also experimented in this area. So you can see here it is the cobbling roof, one above another. This is what is visible now, this white region, and these other steps were not there now. It got ruined, and only this base structure, like thick base structure, is visible now. And the next step in the evolution of pyramid, basically the bent pyramid, again Snufru's bent pyramid at Dashur. So you can see it is almost like our true pyramid, but there is an angle difference over here. So it started off with one particular angle, and then the angle was changed. So it gives an image that it is bent somewhere. Yeah. It was the first attempt for the classical shape. It is built on gravel and not solid bedrock, and it was nearly 50% complete. They started to experience, corners were cracking, there were internal chambers, and they couldn't complete it properly. So because of which they have to go for another. Yeah, so you can see the three-dimensional view over here. So there is an offering place or a satellite pyramid, and they also have upper pyramid burial chamber. Causeway is like once they finish the ritual in the temple, they take the body till here. They also have chapels over here. You can see the first it was raised with an inclination of 54 degree. And then since the cracks were forming, they have to go with an inclination of 43 degree. So that's what is giving that bent appearance. Last in the evolution is the red pyramid, after which comes our royal pyramids. So first red pyramid, it looks like a first true pyramid, and but very small scale. So it is 43 degree in angle to reduce the time of construction. So if it is 51 or something, it will go like this. Since it is 43, the height was very restricted, and they were able to construct it. There was also a mortuary chapel attached to this particular one. Yes, this is the thing. So you have the entrance over here. You also have two antechambers before going to the burial chamber, and there's a chapel. So usually any pyramid will have three things. One is your chapel. Another one is the causeway from where you take to this entry area, or this way is called as the causeway, which connects to the pyramid, and you have the pyramids. Okay, now comes the royal pyramid. So royal pyramids are basically uh, three primary pyramids which are in Giza plateau. So three pyramids were dedicated to three rulers actually. One is for Khufu, second one is for Khafre, and third one was Menkaure. Khufu was father of Khafre, Khafre was the father of Menkaure. And each of the pyramid had a causeway of 1 kilometer length. You can see this is the picture of the causeway. It's like they will carry the sarcophagus from the temple till the pyramid. So this is the layout. As you can see, you have Khufu here, Khafre here, and Menkaure over here. And you can also see smaller ones, other cemeteries that they felt very good that they are getting buried next to their, pharaoh or the ruler. We also have other cemeteries. You can see three satellite pyramids over here. And here in Menkaure, you can see three pyramids for the queens as well. And these are the causeways. One, two, and three causeways can be seen. Here you have the Valley Temple for Menkaure. Here you also have this temple over here. And for pyramid of, the other names for pyramid of Khufu was pyramid of Cheops. Khafre, it is pyramid of Saffron, pyramid of Mycenaeus. So these are the three different names were given to them. You can see that the biggest phoenix is located in the second pyramid. Pyramid of Khafre had the big phoenix, which we usually see in movies. Yeah, this is the 3D construction one, Great Phoenix, Menkaure's pyramid, Khafre's pyramid, and the Khufu's pyramids are there. This is the Nile River. You can see the blue one, it's the Nile River. The picture of pyramid of Khufu. We'll go to the details. So you can see that this true pyramid was 51.5 degree in angle. They had a queen chamber, king chamber at the center, while up the approach road has something called grand gallery. Then only you will see the king chamber. King chamber was also different in nature. The dimension being 146 meter. Sorry, the height was 146 meters. And the base length being 230 meter per side. So it is like a square base, 146 meters high. The angle was 51.5 degree. So there were total of 23 lakh blocks of limestone used. They say that some of those blocks could be weighing even 50 tons in nature. And white Tura limestone were used over here. The outer casting was white Tura limestone, which gives a nice white image to it. They also had a golden top on top of that. So when the sun, actually hits that particular pyramid, this gold was shining from huge distance. It's the king chamber. This is the funeral boat which took the Khufu's body to the pyramid. This is the king's chamber section. The informations are given here, like it is 34 feet 6 inches long by 17 feet wide, and it was 19 feet high. It is made of blocks of red granite, and you can see that these are stones layered in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stones over here, 6 and 7. So total of 7 stone slabs were kept as roof for the king's chamber. Khafre is the second pyramid. The biggest is Khufu, the second biggest is Khafra. But if you see it from a little difference, you can see that there's an illusion is being made that this is high, the second pyramid is high. That is because the elevation of the land itself is high. So that is giving an image that pyramid of Khafre looks taller than the other two. Go to the angles now. So it is 53.1 degree. The tomb was 143.9 meters high, and now it has decreased to 136.5 meters. So for this very 2000, 3000 years, it has already decreased by 10 meters. And the width and the base width was 210.5 meters. Originally, it is said to have 215.3 meters. So again, it is a skyer base, and the height was 143.9 meters. So, yeah, it's each section here. Third was Pyramid of Menkaure. This is the smallest one. He is a successor of Khafre. So it is constructed with limestone and granite. Out of the three, this is the smallest. So it is about 346 feet square, 215 feet high. This is the inner chamber, and you can see they had the statues inside, granite statues of the pharaoh and the queen. It's very simple in nature. You have an entrance, a descending passage which takes you to the antechamber and then to a burial chamber. Here again, the angle of inclination is 51 degree 20 minutes. Yes, that's all for today. I hope you would have learned something about the Egyptian architecture. Thank you.